Okay, we're live now with the finals draw for the Xmage League Season 5. I'm just going to quickly share this over to the Facebook group. Nobody will be listening at this stage. But it'll be played back, so they'll probably watch the replay as well. Okay, so I'm I'm joined now by defending grand champion Bob Debonese. Welcome, Bob.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. We're sort of just doing a very rushed one because I was putting together the finals draw and realised some people were going to be pretty busy this week, so we'll get it out a day earlier rather than tomorrow. So thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, I think it's definitely it's going to be advantageous for people that have a lot of games to play. So, sorry, Tyler, man. Just kind of didn't work out that way, but I think we need additional time.
Yeah, and it's a different situation this year. How did you think it played out now that you've completed your season and you're heading for the finals?
I think the way that we have the league set up currently, compared to our older seasons, is more fair for everyone in general. If you look at the diversity in the brackets, it just shows that we have some of the new players. We have a great representation from the EuroLeague, which we'll get to. But instead of one person just having, the most points in one single division and being called the grand champion, it's okay. I'm okay with officially being the last person to get that. So this gives everyone a better chance. And it's funny because the way that the brackets kind of played out and the intensity of the last week, we happened to be in March Madness for college basketball, and I was like, oh man, this is like just as interesting and intense. So I think it adds another fun element to our league, and we're growing and expanding, and it's great.
Yeah, and as somebody that has won it twice, do you think it's more difficult to win it this year under this format?
It is definitely more difficult. Last year, I was able to kind of accidentally sneak in and take it, and I didn't really have to defend it once I got it. Now, just getting to the playoffs is laboring, and then you have to battle through all these other successful people. It's going to make the grand champion position one that's a bit more coveted because you have to work harder for it, and I think it's going to raise the competition level of the entire league.
Yeah, and it is the like I have the feeling that we've played through the season. Normally we're probably finished now, but although it is only 7 weeks, we normally play 10. But there's still a whole lot more to go for some people. And you mentioned you made a late run this year. There's people that made a late run and made finals, but there's also others that slipped up and didn't make finals. So we've got quite a few surprises that we are going to announce later.
I think it's really cool that stuff like this can happen, and people can have something unique to look forward to. So, yeah, by all means, let it roll out, Matt.
Yeah, I've just got some notes I'm going to go through. People can see the notes on the screen just to explain how we've come up with this final structure. So we had 4 groups: the East, West, European League, and New Players League. And from those 4 groups, we get 4 winners who won the group. These 4 people are seeded 1 to 4, where 1 is the highest score and 4 is the lowest. Now this obviously is disadvantageous to the new players, but as we've mentioned in other places, this is the first time we've sort of opened it up, so it's a bit of a change, and so because they played a game less. After that, we have the 4 group runners up, so those that came second are seeded 5, 6, 7, 8. And so that they avoid the person who won their group in the finals, they're placed on the opposite side of the bracket, where the highest seed, so number 5, is matched up against the lowest bracket on the other side, so number 4, if they're on that particular side. I hope that, does that make sense?
Absolutely, and I think the incentive of getting one of those coveted 4 spots with the bye and then having the ability to go on to play is going to be a massive influence over who's successful. For the players that are going to be playing from the draw, it's not impossible. Just to keep you motivated, this is a true fact. This entire season in Standard, I lost every single game 1 except for 1 week, and I ended up going undefeated in Standard. So just because you're on the draw doesn't mean you're completely crippled. It's okay to come from behind and give your opponent that false sense of security.
Yeah, and so you kind of bring up a point there that I was going to get to. The person that is the highest seed gets to play first in every game. So the person that finished the season as a number one seed will play first for every game that they play in the finals.
Not first every game, but they get to take the play for that match.
First every match.
That would be insane.
Yeah. So standard, you have the option to play first, and if you were, let me get this right, if you win game one of standard, that doesn't mean you get to play first game two. It reverts to normal then. It's just for the first game of each format you get to the option of playing first. So I'll throw a two-part question at you then. Do you think that this is a good reward for finishing higher up the ladder, and is it going to be a massive advantage?
Yeah, it's definitely a very solid reward. I mean, oftentimes in different tournament brackets and stuff, whoever has the most points gets a bye, and that's great. But I've often seen just having the bye means that you don't have that like playing momentum and that confidence to carry you through the rest of the rounds. Having the bye and having the play in every one of your matches just gives you that much more incentive to really to go for it. So I'm curious to see how it works out, and I'm pretty confident everyone's going to give us positive feedback on the way that it's set up. You did a really good job of taking the vision of the rest of the moderators and running with it. So right off the bat, thanks to you, Matt, for really, once again, just doing a great job.
Thanks, but I should mention here the model that we've chosen, or that we're following for the Grand Champion particularly, and the formats, I think was your design, Bob. So thanks very much for that. I tweaked it a little bit with regards to how we seed the people, because we changed the divisions around so that it wasn't split as it originally was. But I just wanted to touch on the other small parts, the wildcards. So the wildcards are then ranked 9, 10, 11, 12, where the 12, who is the last person in, is put in the bracket with the overall number 1. And so 11 is in with 2, 10 with 3, and 9 with 4. This will, when I put up the standings shortly, this will become very clear, hopefully. The other thing I just wanted to mention very briefly is that finals are best out of 3. And I don't know if this is obvious, but I'm going to mention it anyway. If the match has been decided, then you don't need to play the third one. So if you play standard and modern and the same person wins both, then you don't need to play legacy.
So I don't mean to put you on the spot, Matt, but I just thought of it. Do we have to follow the standard, modern, legacy order for every single match, or can the person pick the order they want to play them in?
Actually, just as I was saying that came to my mind. I tried to cover everything in this document, but that's one thing I've missed out. But we do have that covered if anyone can be bothered to go to the group website for the rules. In the rules, it states that the highest seed can choose the format that's played first as well. Obviously, this only applies for Grand Champion, not for formats. So, whoever is the highest seed gets to choose the format that's played first, and then then the other person chooses the second format.
So, hint, whoever plays me, I was kind of middling in Modern and Legacy, and I did fairly well at Standard. So, you may not want, if you have the choice, to play Standard against me right away. You might want to punish me in my weaker formats.
Yep, and just moving on, what happened, there was quite a few instances throughout rankings and seedings where people were tied for points. What we first did was take head-to-head results, which we always do to determine rankings. This was the only one that was decided by this was the New Players League, where Cody Topman finished on top because he beat Julia Corbin in the final round. They actually met head-to-head, that's no secret. After that, we then counted back points against. So I went back and looked at every single match, and whoever had the least points scored against them, where 4 points means they lost the round, and 1 point means the other person won a game against them, whoever had the least was then ranked higher. Luckily, we didn't have to fall back to the third option, which is player from the group the highest seed is the winner. So they're all decided by that.
And that was something I didn't even think of. Good on you for catching that, and ended up coming into play a couple instances. I think myself and Emerson on our overall higher seeding. So, it's one thing you get the points, but if you're tied with somebody, it's almost like if you didn't give up points, your defense, your consistency gets counted. I think that's great.
Yeah, and it's all these little things like that's why I try and get these sorted at least a week before, because you just think of things last minute. People obviously, I run it by all the mods, more sets of eyes to give us an idea and so on. So just moving along, then we'll look at just very quickly how last season's winners fared. Yourself, who is the defending grand champion, won the group again by 4 points, so you're still very much alive, and we'll see where you're seated shortly. And in standard, here's the first spoiler of the night. Unfortunately, Oliver King was beaten in the group by Emerson Lardy, and he actually missed a wildcard spot on countback. He finished equal on points with the person who took the final spot, but unfortunately that person on countback had a lower score scored against him. In Modern, yourself, you were beaten in the group by myself and unfortunately missed the finals altogether. In Legacy, where I'm the defending champion, I was beaten by Josh Grace. We both finished with 25 points, but he beat me in the head-to-head. But spoiler again, I did manage to qualify for a wildcard spot. So shall we have a look at this, the brackets then?
Yes, please. And neither one of us prepared a drum roll. We're really lame, but
yeah, this is very much thrown together at the end. I'm just going to bring this up right now. Image. Let's have a look. So I'm going to bring up standard first. These are the standard qualifiers. So the number 1 seed for standard is Bob Debonese. Yourself, congratulations.
Thank you.
Number 2 seed is Emerson Lardy, 25 points. So both you and Emerson get the first week bye. And in the 2 brackets, the way that this worked was the 2 group winners, other group winners, was number 3 seed Felix Stenitzer and the number 4 seed of the new players group, Tony Jackson. So the lower seed of those 2, which is Tony, gets placed with the higher seed, which is yourself, Bob. And then we had our 2 wild cards, which was Josh Grace on 24 points and Chris Sandman scraped in on 21. Chris actually was tied with Oliver for 21 points, but managed to scrape in on a countback. Let me just bring
and right again, you can just see the diversity where there's people from every single different group included in here. It's great.
Yep, and for those that are counting, the countback, Oliver had 10 points scored against him, and Chris Sandman had 9 points scored against him. So it was a solitary game over the season that was the difference between making the playoffs and missing out.
Hey, and we did our podcast the first week of the season, or it was the primer, and I said, hey, guys, go for those single games. Don't get down on yourself. Don't concede and fight for it. And now we're already seeing where it's affecting the standings at the end of the year. So hang in there and fight for it, guys. It's worth it.
Yeah, and just before we move on, I mentioned as well, you've mentioned it previously, you managed to go this season undefeated in standard. So if anyone's to beat you to the title, then they're going to have to knock off your unbeaten record.
Not to toot my own horn, but I purposely switched it up on a regular basis this year, and I think, what did we play, 7 weeks? I believe I played 4 different decks. I just didn't want anyone to get a beat on what I was doing, and luckily it worked out.
Yep. Just in case anyone's wondering as well, all of these ladders and tables and so on are going to be put on the group. I'm probably not going to do it tonight because it's quite late. I'll do it tomorrow. Matt Suzo saying my poor precious eardrums. Maybe I'm talking too loud, sorry. Jason's asking, so tiebreaker number 2 is opposite game win percentage or your game win percentage. The tiebreaker is if you won the game 2-1, then the other person gets 1 point against you. If you lost the game 1-2, then the other person gets 4 points against you, so that would count as 5 on the count back. And I go through all your 7 games, and whoever has the lowest score is ranked higher. So I'll move on then to modern. So this is our modern bracket now. And interestingly here, the count back again was used. The number 1 seed is myself. I went undefeated in the season, as well as Luca Marini. Luca also went undefeated. I'm just bringing up the count back. I had 3 points scored against me all season, and Luca had 5 points scored against. So I take the number 1 seed, and he takes the number 2. The other group winners were Emerson Lardy, who finished with 24, and Jordan Berkeley, a friend of one of our moderators, Tyler Adams. His New Player League finished with 20. And then for our final 2 spots in the Modern League, the wildcards go to Felipe Santos, who's also a new player in the European League, of 24 points, and Colron Chambers, who's a US regular, but he decided to switch to the European League this season with 22 points. So that means week 1 matchups are going to be Jordan Berkeley against Colron Chambers, Emerson Lardy versus Felipe Santos. Me and Luca have the week off.
That's really cool on Colron. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he's been more of a standard specialist, and he's been kind of picking up and learning Legacy and Modern. And for him to, have a high point percentage and get into this bracket is actually really great on him. Huge improvement.
Yeah, and the thing with Colron, I believe, he's quite a brewer. I'm just going to turn. He brews quite a bit, so I think he does that for fun. And his computer was actually wrecked, so he had to sit out start of the season, and then there were some issues where a spot came up in the European League, so he said, hey, I can play in there, even though he's in the US and there's a different time zone. He's accommodated himself to the European time zone, which was great, and we really appreciate that. The one thing that I haven't finalized, just while I remember, is the teams standings. I'm going to do that tomorrow morning, so they'll be posted up tomorrow as well. And the other thing I'm curious to look at is how many finalists from each division. Okay, we're going to move along to Legacy now. Why is that suddenly changed size? Okay, so we can see our Legacy finalists here. The number 1 seed came from our group, Josh Grace, finished with 25 points. The number 2 seed for Legacy is a new player from the European League, Paxson Panganaban. He jumps in to get the week off as well for Legacy. The other 2 group winners were Cody Topman, who actually secured his Legacy final spot in the last week with his win over Julia Corbin, and Oliver King, a name that we haven't read out yet. He scrapes into finals in Legacy by winning his group. And the 2 wildcards are myself with 25 points. I'm the defending champion, so I'm still a chance to keep my Legacy crown. I actually finished behind Josh Grace because he beat me in the head-to-head. And Felix Stenitzer, another name that we haven't really called out yet. Felix is scraped into the final wildcard spot and will face Oliver King in week 1.
This is a stacked, fierce bracket. Oh boy.
Yeah, there's quite a few names there that we are used to calling in the past but haven't really called now, so very interesting. And so moving on from Legacy then, the big one, the Grand Champion that I'm going to bring up now. And here we have it. I have to actually shrink this down because it's huge. Okay, so if we see our brackets, I hope you're looking. I sent you the copy, Bob, or you're watching on stream as well. The number 1 overall seed, thanks to a late result today, is from the European division, Luca Marini, 68. Clean sweep Felix Stenitzer in his matchup. which was a bit of a shock. We're going to have those games posted tomorrow for you. I've got to finish a bit of editing, but Luca is the number 1 overall seed with 68 points. The number 2 seed, I'm just going to bring up the details here because this was a count back. The number 2 seed is Emerson Lardy with 66 points, and the number 3 seed is yourself, Bob, with 66 points. On the countback, Emerson had conceded 27 points and Bob had conceded 30, so Emerson takes the number 2 seed. And Cody Topman, he had the winner-takes-all showdown in the final round against Julia Corbin in the New Players League. He won, so he takes the number 4 seed with 48. So all those 4 players have the week off. Then, this is where it gets complicated, as I mentioned before. We have that's the 1, 2, 3, 4 seeds. We then have the 5, 6, 7, 8. So you can see number 5 seed is Felipe Santos, number 62 or 62 points. Now Felipe cannot be matched with Luca, so he goes on the opposite side of the bracket. Because he's the highest of the next group, he gets matched against Bob's bracket. Number 6 seed is Josh Grace. Josh comes from Bob's group, so he has to be on the opposite side of Bob. And so Josh is the number 6 seed with 62 points. The number 7 seed is Oliver King, still very much alive there, Oliver, matched up against the bracket on the opposite side from Emerson Lardy. And then we have the number 8 seed, which is Julia Corbin, matched up on the opposite side from Cody Topman. From there we have the wild cards, which is seeds 9, 10, 11 and 12. Number 9 is Felix Stenitzer with 60. Myself with 59 points. Paxson Panganaban is... I don't know why the number's being cut out there. I'll see if I can...
Because his last name is 5 miles long. I can't believe you pronounced it that many times.
I'm sorry, but I can't see his score, but he's the number 11 seed at the moment. And Evan Bellow scrapes in as the final at the very last spot. So out of... I think we started off memory with 34 people. We're down to 12. And Evan gets that coveted 12th spot, which means our week 1 finals are going to be Oliver King versus Evan Bellow, Josh Grace versus Felix Stenitzer, Julia Corbin versus Paxson Panganaban, and Felipe Santos against myself, Matthew Tones. So you can see why we wanted to bring this forward as soon as possible, because there is a hell of a lot of games for some people there to play. All this is going to be posted in the group as well. So just before we finish up then, that's the matchups. Bob, any final thoughts or words?
Man, I got to tell you, the number 7 versus number 12, Oliver and Evan, and 6 versus 9, Josh versus Felix. I think Oliver and Felix are going to be looking to win. I know they're hungry, and I'm glad I'm not playing them in the first round.
Yeah, it's... Obviously, I probably follow the names and the standings more than most because I deal with the statistics and so on. But I agree. I'm looking at this bracket now, and yourself and Emerson, which I remind our listeners or viewers that we've had 4 grand champions, and only 2 people have taken that prize. It's those 2, Emerson and Bob, with yourself with 2 each. Unfortunately, you're not going to meet in the finals this year, but those 2 names stick out on one side, and certainly Oliver and Felix stick out on the other. But having said that, we can't discard like Luca Marini, who's the top seed. He was actually our standard champion in season 1 and took a bit of a break away. Standard, I think Dylan Magica was standard season 1. Luca was legacy season 1. So yeah, very much open there. It's going to be an interesting final series. Some people have to play.
I think it's really cool that Luca made it back to us and he found success. And Felix has been perched atop of the EuroLeague for quite some time now, and it's nice to have some competition. So hopefully that brings the best out of everyone, and this bracket is alive, and there's some good matches. And like I said, it's like March Madness time. This is like getting me pumped up.
Yeah, and I'm going to put these brackets up now. I just realised I've got about, I think, 2 matches this week. So Felix and Oliver have got a couple as well. They're matched up against each other. So that's all we've got time for tonight. Thanks very much for joining me, Bob, and best of luck. And to all of our competitors, thanks very much for making us basically a flawless season and a very entertaining season so far.
Thanks for having me, Matt, and good luck to you and all of our other competitors. Good luck, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.